Hello, students. This week, Module 5 is all about planning instruction. The objectives for this module are to describe how effective planning starts with broad goals for learning and then moves to more specific objectives. Understand how interdisciplinary teaching provides rewards and poses challenges. Explain the basic parts of a lesson plan that need to be addressed, including overview, objectives, state standards, materials needed, planned activities, enrichment, closings, assessment. Give examples of how lessons should include opportunities for cognitive development. And some questions to ask before you begin the planning process. Who are the students? What is their age level? What is their reading level? What's expected by your school administrators? What are the state standards? What are the resources available? So you're going to start with the overall purpose or vision for the course. What will students be taking away from a term, a semester, or a year, whatever it might be? What are the big ideas or essential skills that are important for students to grasp? And once you've done that, that will answer the question of why do we have to learn this? So, the first thing is the topics and their sequence. State or district guides may specify specific concepts or skills that you're required to do. You also have sources to consult for help on a logical sequence of topics. You're also going to confer with colleagues and also textbooks. Many of the textbooks today have had educators involved with creating a particular order and developing those together. One of the important things to know about with planning curriculum and lessons is pacing. And pacing refers to how you're going to set this up and how much time you need to spend on each part of a lesson. Sorry. So when you're pacing, you're breaking topics into subtopics. You're going to allow time for each subtopic, and there are factors that are going to affect pacing. Maybe one particular subtopic is particularly challenging, so you may have to spend time reteaching that one. You may have to set up lots of practice for that particular thing. You're also going to consider the level of their learners, any instructional activities that you want them to do to practice, and allowing time for the unexpected. You can have the best plans for a lesson, but what could possibly go wrong? Have some flexibility to allow you either extra time or, say, for instance, you get started and the students already know this information, so you don't need to spend as much time on it. Interdisciplinary planning is an interesting topic because in this case, you will be working likely with other educators. You might decide on a theme. Say, for instance, this year we're going to be learning about dinosaurs. And so we're going to be talking about dinosaurs in science, and we're going to be talking about dinosaurs with history and the history of the world. And you might also want to talk about dinosaurs by writing stories about them. So you might have a team together to develop that. You're going to develop that organizing theme, decide which subject is the primary content base. In this case, it would probably be science. And figure out how that topic can intersect among those disciplines and coordinate your plans. When you are planning, make sure that you have clear learning goals and objectives. Goals are broad statements about what the students will know or be able to do as a result of the learning activities. Objectives are specific statements identifying behaviors that you will be expected to demonstrate as evidence of mastery. So goals are broader, objectives are more specific. One thing you should be familiar with when looking at lesson planning is Bloom's taxonomy. Excuse me. In Bloom's taxonomy, you're covering cognitive or intellectual activities, affective, the social emotional states, and psychomotor skills. So physical dexterity. Can the student hold a pencil? Do they know how to cut with scissors? Anything that is physical dexterity. The revised Bloom's taxonomy of cognitive objectives lists these words here that you see. So this is in order of how difficult or intensive these things are. At the remembering level, you can ask students to define a word and list some of the products of the word, for instance. Remembering is basically rote information. You are just spouting back what someone has shared with you. Understanding is taking it to a different level. That's where students, you could have them explain in their own words every step of a project. When you apply it, that's taking it another step further. You already understand photosynthesis. Now what's going to happen if we add to the water molecules for that? Then analyzing. That requires the students to break the process down into component parts. Evaluating, you are starting to assess the impact of whatever the procedures are that you're learning about. And the creating level is where they might write a story or a poem or an artwork or a song that's affected by a process of photosynthesis, for instance. That's the example that's used in your textbook, and it goes into a little more detail about it there, so you can read about that. Let me go back to that again. Oh, actually, it doesn't allow me to go back. If you were talking in elementary level, the example provided in your textbook is about studying the solar system. So if we were looking at the levels of Bloom's taxonomy, the remembering level would be stating the names of the planets in order away from the sun. Understanding, looking at pictures of the planets and asking them to name the planets. Applying level, create a model of a particular planet. Analyzing level, decide which planets are most likely to be warmer or colder. Evaluating level, which ones would be more hospitable for human colonization. And then the creating level, writing a short story, imagining what kind of creatures might live on the planets. So that's the way that you can take that at elementary or high school levels. When you're also doing the lesson planning, you're going to think about the affective domain and the psychomotor domain, as we mentioned. Affective is receiving, responding, valuing, organizing, characterization. Psychomotor, perception, set, guided response, and so forth. When you want to write some learning objectives, you're going to look for observable behaviors. What will students do to show they've acquired the knowledge? What are the conditions? What materials and resources will be available? How much time is allocated? And the criteria. What defines acceptable behavior? You're also going to follow your state standards in your lesson plans. And I believe that some of the resources I've provided have some links to standards for you. And I'll check to make sure those are there. You're also going to want to know about materials. That's important with the planning, because you can't just plan a lesson and then not have the materials to do that. What happens before, during, and after? What's the procedure? How do you introduce the ideas and objectives of the lesson? Many classrooms and schools today require teachers to put the objectives on the board so that students actually know what the goals and objectives are. How will you get the students' attention and motivate them to hold their attention? What will be expected of the students? How will you communicate that? And in the beginning, getting students focused and engaged, anticipatory sets, cognitive to get students to think about the focus, and get them interested in learning. When you start the lesson, you already have the beginning where you were getting them ready. Now you have the learning activity, and the end is closing the lesson off and the assessment. Did they get it? Did they understand it? Did the students learn? Did they achieve the objectives you wanted them to achieve? Now, once that's done, do you need to have some extended activities? Do you need to have some additional scaffolding for the activity for students? Think about the adaptations that you need to make for the students. Sometimes there are lesson transitions that you're going to now use this information in a new lesson or connect among a different subject. Again, the objectives are here for you to review, and let me know if you have any questions.